Here we go. Hello all, I'm King John, you're you, and you should keep doing that, because that's pretty cool. So I got a real hot take for you here. We should close all American Indian reservations. Why? Well, TLDR, because they're bad for the people who actually live in them. But I'll give you a longer explanation, because I think that is called for. This is a bit of a hot take. I don't know of anyone else calling for this, but so basically, the the Indian reservation system in the United States of America is a series of bad compromises ending up in a system that just is very bad. It does not work at all well. So I'll go back a little bit, talk a little about the history of it. I'll go back to President Grant and Eli S. Parker. Now, Eli S. Parker was he was an Iroquois. I think he was a Seneca, actually. Who he was a good friend of Grant's, served with him during the Civil War, and he was the first American Indian to be appointed to the head of the Indian Department in the federal government. Really cool guy. Amazing story. Now, Mr. Parker did not live on a reservation. He went out into mainstream American society, and he was a very successful businessman. He was a very successful soldier, and eventually a very successful politician. So, having lived and worked and fought with this man for many years, Grant became convinced, for reasons that I think are pretty good, that the best thing for American Indians would be for them to be assimilated, to join mainstream American society. But for various reasons, one of them being the resistance of American Indians themselves to being assimilated, never happened. Or the specific program that was intended to encourage American Indians to assimilate never happened. Some did, many did, and many were very successful. Others went into reservations, and they were horrible. Many thousands of people died. Now, to a certain extent, you can blame that on bad government. There were many cases in which the federal government did not supply funding, or corrupt officials substituted bad goods for good goods, or there was a lot that went wrong for a very long time. To a certain extent, things are better now. There's less corruption than there was in, say, the 1880s, for example. However, the actual conditions of people living on these reservations are not so much improved. I mean, okay, fewer people are starving to death. That is good. We are very happy that fewer people are dying of starvation and exposure, but they're still not actually being well taken care of. Education-wise, people living on reservations lag behind almost the entire country, even though the federal government spends roughly twice as much per child on education on the reservations in the rest of the country. I read somewhere like the federal government spends like approximately $12,000 per year per child on education, and roughly $24,000 per child per year on reservations. And they still lag behind the entire country. In fact, people living on reservations lag behind the entire country in lots of ways. um, to just about every measurable way, their lives are worse. You talk about single motherhood, highest in the country, drug abuse, alcohol addiction, unemployment, You want to talk about crime rates. You want to talk about even people starving to death. They lead the country. It's not good. And unfortunate fact is that in at least in many cases, letting these different tribes, these different nations, have their own parallel government, their own parallel law enforcement, doesn't work, or doesn't work for the people who need to live under them. In many cases, they work out very well for the people in charge. One thing you need to remember is that in most cases, these parallel governments are not in any way democratic. Excuse me, my dog found his sock. Now, there are some people on what we call the extreme right who might make claims about racial inferiority or some such thing, and that is very dumb because American Indians, even whole tribes, whole nations who are not federally recognized, who don't live on reservations, they don't have that. In fact, non-federally recognized tribes who don't live on reservations, who don't get government benefits, they're actually, on average, better off than the average American. Now, there are some people who will claim that the reservation system is necessary in order to allow people to preserve their cultures, to remain united as a nation. Well, speaking as a Jew whose people survived without a reservation for anywhere for roughly 2,000 years, if you can't survive culturally without a reservation, then your culture is weak and you deserve to be assimilated. Another hot take, I know. ATV, but anyway, I think I've said all I meant to say. I am 100% in favor of people remaining united as a nation, keeping their cultures alive. I am not in favor of parallel governments. I am not in favor of trapping people in a centuries-long cycle of poverty, which is what the actual effect of Indian reservations has been. And that's the really important part, because you can make all kinds of claims about why they're there, what they're intended for, what their purpose is, but the actual effect has been really, really bad, continuously, for literally hundreds of years. Throughout the entire history of the Indian reservation system, people who left the reservations, who assimilated into mainstream American work, industry, whatever, are better off. Now, there's no reason that not having a reservation you couldn't all still live together. You could take the actual reservations that exist now and subdivide the land among the people who are living there, and they could all live together, and they could all still keep on their own society, their own culture, and not be trapped there, and not be stuck on government benefits. You could do that, and people who don't want to live there could sell their land and go somewhere else. There's lots of options. But we seem to be stuck on the one that sucks. And sucks especially for the people who are there. Anyway, that's all I got to say. Thank you for listening in, and I hope you have a good night.